Okay, it's preparing. Give me 1 second. Okay, sir, we are all set.
Hey, this is Ed Dowling. I'd like to convene the June meeting of the Madison Board of Police Commission. And, unfortunately, we are not able to meet in the regular police training room where there is an American flag. But still, I'd like to start our meeting off as we traditionally do with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag, of the United States of America, and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Okay. First order of business, Christy did a very extensive compilation of the minutes from our May meeting, and it absolutely, I think, captured everything. So is there a motion to accept the May 11th minutes?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion or corrections that we need to make?
No.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
The minutes are accepted. Thank you very much. I know we do have some members of the public in our who have logged in, and so I'd like to invite them to submit their comments. If you could state your name and address before making your comments. We normally ask you to try to be concise in your comments, depending on the number of individuals who would like to speak and the respect to the length of the meeting. So if someone, a member of the public, would like to make a comment, please identify yourself and we'd be glad to welcome your input. Captain, do you have any sense of that they are trying to log in or trying to comment, or if are they actively participating on the meeting call? Do you know?
As of right now, so there are no comments, just Paul Kessinger, 285 Legend Hill Road. No questions.
They could also use the chat at the bottom of the screen. They could also type a question. Looks like we have one now in the chat, Joe.
Yes, sir. No comment from Jude Hessian.
Okay. So Chief, is there a someone typing something in? Do you know? Can you see on your screen? I don't see it at the bottom of mine.
Mr. Chairman, there's no questions as of yet. I think maybe as we progress through the meeting
Okay.
tonight, somebody may have a question they want to ask.
Okay, then Chief, can we move to the Chief's report?
Yes, we can. Good evening, all. We'll start with the financials. We're getting close to the last few weeks of the budget year for fiscal year 1920. Right now, we'll be doing line item transfers. I explained to you in the last meeting to offset some of the overtime expense, which is related to the shortage of 3 officers and also the impact of COVID and the impact of ham and acid in the beach roads during COVID. We're going to be doing a line item transfer. I believe it's the next Board of Finance meeting. And the actual amount is going to depend on where we are with 2 weeks from now with overtime, the next pay period. So we're going to try the best we can to bring it to zero and not have an impact on the a line item transfer or a correction impact of a special appropriation with one exception. Right now, because of the unencumbered line and a little bit of extra in the holiday line, we should be able to bring it to zero. The only one that would be outstanding would be the highway construction project. That's where we bill the vendor for using police officers on site at a construction site. You might recall what we do is we do charge a premium. We charge them for the car, the insurances, workman's comp, and of course at a time and a half rate. Approximately now about 33,000 over in that account line. However, the billing is excess of 50. So that should bring it to zero and then put a plus in the general fund line. Generally, they do that after July 1st prior to the audit in August. Any questions on financials?
Yes, Chief, do we know, since there was clearly a linkage with some of the Middle Beach Road issues, including reassigning of officers, do we know as yet whether any of that extra expense, such as overtime, might be reimbursed from federal sources?
The answer is yes, 75%. We've made application to FEMA, filed. We file our paperwork. I believe they're doing it monthly. We're getting out in front of it because we've experienced going through FEMA in previous storms. You might recall back when we had to rebuild part of Middle Beach Road. So we learned from the lessons from that. You got to get out in front and get it quickly in, or you won't see the reimbursement for in excess of a year, 18 months. So right now we're probably an impact of $22,000 roughly between all things beach roads, the impact of Hammonasset, all related to a lot of people coming to town during the COVID, during our COVID restrictions. For us, the impact is felt more because they only have 600 parking spaces available at Hammonasset, although they do not reduce the number of people that they allow into the park. When the park is closed, there's still folks trailing in, trying to park their cars everywhere. Example, on Monday, once the park closed, mid-morning, we had folks trying to park cars everywhere they could along the beach roads and Route 1. We had to respond with, obviously, with the patrols and those that are on the extra patrols assigned to the beach roads. So I don't see any help in sight with that with the state. I have called up, but I think we're still going to have to deal with it. I would anticipate, as we talked last time, we're probably going to close out somewhere around that 24,000 mark for overtime related to all things COVID, not just the beach roads. So yes, it's 75% reimbursement, and we keep very accurate records. It goes to the EOC, and of course, those reimbursements to date have been applied for.
Chief, were any of those cars ticketed or towed that were parked illegally?
Say that again now?
Were any of those cars on Route 1 or any other location that were an overflow from Hammonasset, were they ticketed or towed?
Well, assortment have been ticketed. As far as towing, records have been called, but the people miraculously appear when the tow truck arrives, and we've sent them, put them back on a list and rotation. Of course, the folks walked away with a infraction for parking where they did. There are a couple that I think I may anticipate where you're going with this. Are there any hearing requests? Is that what you want to know?
No, just wanted to know if that we were enforcing the regulations, so people figured that they really couldn't do it, and they go back and tell friends and neighbors, don't do it. It'll cost you money or you'll lose your car.
I generally will do that message when I talk about activity, but yes. And as far as there are people requesting hearings, just for point of information.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Let me just try and understand this, and Al, maybe you can help out. So we've got approximately $20,000 that we've requested, given this extra police labor expense related to the COVID-19. So if those funds are approved by FEMA sometime over the next 12 months, how will those funds flow back into the police department, if at all? Will they go to the town to be reallocated to the 2021 budget? Is there a reserve that the money was drawn from? How will that work?
I can give the general answer. The general answer is the reimbursements come from the federal government back to the town coffers. Since the fiscal year ending June 30th of 2020 will have closed, there is no way to put that back into this year's budget. I think at some future point in time, when we receive the FEMA funds, if the Board of Police Commissioners would like access to those funds, I think you'll have to apply to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance. Did I
Mr.
answer
Chairman?
that question?
Chief?
Yeah, essentially, we close out the year. If there's, they'll bring it to zero prior to the audit. During the audit, they'll establish that the funds were used on obviously the extraordinary circumstances. And if and when the money is returned, it will go to the general fund. But it's noted in the audit that it was used as an offset to extra overtime to accommodate the impact of COVID-19 in the Madison, Connecticut community.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Any other questions on the budget or financials? Okay, as far as activity, you did not receive a handout on the actual tickets issued or calls for service. I'm going to talk to a couple of the areas of activity. In the July meeting, you're going to get the first and second quarter of this year report in writing. And if you have questions on it, you'll have that with your packets. We can refer back to it. In general, the calls for service have changed. We have people that are homebound, so are not working from their homes. So subsequently, some of the crimes related to people in vacant homes or homes unattended, we've seen a reduction in those, i.e. burglaries, vandalisms. You have seen an increase in some of the domestic violence calls for service, assaults, or medical. So that will be reflected in that report. What I want to talk about is last weekend's event, if I could, under activity. Okay. I'm
sorry, absolutely.
Okay. Last week we had the Black Lives Matter gathering from the youth diversity group out of the Congregational Church on the Green. It was anticipated to be a few hundred people that would assemble on the grounds of the church. They would have a gathering with some speeches in recognition and devotion to those that have succumbed to police violence. The event probably had more like 400 to 550 folks attend. It was very orderly. There wasn't any incident of violence or people that were trying disruption. It was very well organized, and it was it went off very well. The police department, which controlled the security of it, also had the opportunity for the interpersonal after the service and with some of the attendees, which was it was a wonderful experience. So it was uneventful. I believe that Commissioner Cartledge was in attendance also.
Okay.
Well, I'll echo everything that the chief said. It was there was that approximate size crowd, 400 to 500 people. It was orderly. The way the chief laid out the protection of the streets and the potential blocking for vehicles and anything was extremely well done. The police presence with the officers on bicycles was noted, and the positioning of the SWAT cars on the back of the green just to oversee everything. It went off very, very well. There was no interaction of any negative kind between anybody in the department and any of the public. So kudos to the department and kudos to the public for how it went.
Just want to add one,
Go
if I
ahead.
may, one component to that is that somebody had asked me, they were a little curious as we started dump trucks for the public works there. And what I've done is, and it's been in models for securing special events, is that we use the dump trucks to secure intersections or to follow, if there's a group march, to follow them. It prevents traffic from running into them, either accidentally or deliberately. So it's a safety protocol.
Okay, thank you.
Chief, could you speak to the youth-led march that's happening this weekend?
I was gonna, if it's okay, I was gonna talk to that during current events, if I may.
Yes,
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other questions on activity or statistics?
Nope.
Okay, but with your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'll go into training.
Okay.
Alrighty. Some of our training still is modified. It's online with post services, the post council. Some of the additional training we also have done online. But there was a question, and I think it's appropriate for this point, is that some folks had asked us, what kind of training do police do in escalation or dealing with various groups? So I just want to give a general, then I'll answer any questions if I may.
Sure. Let me ask you, we normally have a training report. What happened to that?
I just explained that to you, sir. The training has been, most of it's been reduced because of the COVID-19. There is an operational academy right now. It's all being done online, sir.
Okay. I didn't realize all of it was, okay.
Okay. So the question came up on de-escalation training. What are some of the things that training opportunities or training protocols that the town of Madison currently engages in and has for a period of time? What we do is we've trained several of the officers, and we have a general and an advanced training in what they call critical incident CIT training, which essentially is critical incident training or critical incident team, depending on which discipline you come from. With the police, it's training. With the team, would be behaviorists, special services, MSWs trained in it, and they work in conjunction of a team approach with local police authorities or state police, depending on who has the jurisdiction in certain communities. It basically is it's a process where the officer receives 40 hours of training, and essentially, I guess the key word is it trains you in de-escalation, responding to people that have various issues, episodes, which it may be drug-related or mental illness. So the Madison Police Department proudly has a large percentage of our department trained hands-on with the 40-hour course. So of course, every one of the officers receives training updated on critical incident response, de-escalation. We also have in-house training officers for de-escalation techniques. Years ago, as an example, years ago, you'd respond to somebody in crisis, whether it be a form of Asperger's or ADH, or so the officer would respond, and the communication was limited. It was treated like a medical, and the person was shipped off by ambulance to a behavior unit at a major hospital. That no longer occurs. Now if we have those episodes, and we have many, some of the schools that we work with, and it's the officer will sit down with the subject, and after about 10-15 minutes, it's amazing to see how the de-escalate the issue, the conversation, and generally we've been very successful in that, using the techniques that are taught through CIT. I think the role of policing has changed. The roles of policing has changed. I think when we look at what they did with the hospitals from the 1960s to 70s, we started, they no longer warehouse patients. They sent them out to the streets, and they had set up critical services within their community. However, half the funding never arrived at those communities. So it was put back, I'm going to use the term dumped on the local communities throughout this country. So now when people are in crisis, who do they call? They dial 911. So the police are the first responders to it. So it's essential, obviously, and most certainly what we've seen timely in the media, and of course the influences of policing and that interpersonal, that we have to have that training. So I just want to assure the public of the town of Madison that we've been in front of this for several years now, and we continually do the in-service, and most of our training exceeds what is the minimal out of the post council.
Okay, so Chief, I understand you so that there's a 40-hour advanced course, and those are my words, in terms of de-escalation of critical incident kind of events. So after someone becomes certified as a police officer, obviously they receive a key component of this is their training and preparation to become a police officer. And after that, there's a 40-hour course that also focuses on that topic.
Well, there's an in-service for, when you're in the academy now, you come out, you have this mandatory.
Right.
when you try to take folks that have been on the road for years, police officers for years, the conversion over, so to speak, you have to bring them updated. It takes 40 hours in a classroom, a week classroom, to properly train them and equip them.
All right. So if someone were to ask what percentage of the Madison Police Department officers have received this remedial training, how would we answer?
I would say 80% of the patrol,
Okay, good,
as well as the supervisors.
good. Okay.
Any further questions on this subject?
On the training? No, I don't have any.
Okay. Alrighty. The monthly traffic report, and as I do have that, I should be in your packet. Essentially, we had 8 motor vehicle accidents. The majority of accidents are inattentiveness, texting, and of course, following too closely. In the case of some of these, the majority were people driving left to center or driving off the road. That means they were probably texting when the event occurred.
Okay.
The community calendar, as I believe I explained to you folks, we talked about it last meeting. I could probably remind some of the folks that are watching today. The Memorial Day event went off very well. There was more in attendance than they had anticipated, but everybody practiced proper PPE under the governor's 7-PP directive. Our races that we normally have and events on the green have been somewhat postponed. Concert series postponed. There was a cancellation of the first of the, I think it's 3 antique show on the green. The farmers market has returned to the green though, and it's following the guidelines as set by the governor's office. Obviously on the 17th of June, the dynamics change again, and I'm sure they'll change again right after that, allowing more folks and of course with proper mask and PPE practices, social distancing. The July 4th events have been postponed to the Labor Day weekend, the weekend of the 6th, 7th. And we talked to that last meeting. That's still, that's the plan.
Okay. Okay.
Regional shared services. Well, I guess I could speak to all the events that have occurred in regards to unrest or gatherings, protests, marches. That's encompassed in our region about 19 police departments in the Connecticut State Police, and all of us working together to assist each other, which we have. We've sent folks to various communities for events, and of course, we've had folks assist us as late as last Sunday's event. We will have folks assisting us from our regional partners on Saturday's march, which we'll talk about in current events.
Okay. Chief, let me ask you, last month, a very active topic was Middle Beach Road and the thoroughfare and the pedestrian issues. I think you set up a kind of a focused review of both additional signage, officer assignments, the introduction of expanded bike patrols down there. Is there anything I've not heard of other incidents down there? Could you just comment on your sense of how those adjustments and actions that you implemented over the last month to 6 weeks or so have been working?
Well, it started off as we recall in the very beginning, where once the weather started changing, those that were in their homes, not only in our community, external to our community, were going to the beaches, going to the beach roads, walking on the beach road. We put signs up that reminded people proper PPE, social distancing. as it progressed into the crowds and the population increased, and of course traffic increased, we addressed that by various signage and also increased most certainly the patrols. So what you're seeing right now as a result of that, the complaints that we're receiving have slowed down or are non-existent. I did have 2 complaints recently, but it wasn't related to what we're doing, was related to recreation operation. So, but they came to us, so we passed it on to the proper administration authority for recreation and with the selectman's office. I think the impact of the officers on bikes, the impact of the officer on the motorcycle, I never got so many comments on that. I think it's kind of funny, that people thought, they don't know the cars, they don't notice the police cars, but they notice the guy on the motorcycle, which is a loan to us by the town of Guilford, and I thank them publicly. And the only expenses we incurred is we had to get a helmet with the radio mic in it for the officer that's riding it. He had his gear. He came certified through the Delaware program by way of, we hired him when he retired from the police department of the city of New Haven. He's an active patrol officer for us. So it was an easy transition. And meeting all the criteria for NHTSA for safety. And of course, he had excellent training through Delaware State Police. So that's what we're using. That was the expense associated with it, obviously, then fuel. And the town of Guilford even tuned it up for us prior to. They were not using it at the time, and it's an older bike, but it gives us some, it's been a tremendous tool for us, and it gives us some thought for where we may, in the future, consider that for the town of Madison. But right now, between that and the bicycles are great. It works well, the interpersonal with people. And we also have some officers, the ones that are on at night, it's been filled by one of our canine officers. So that's been a great impact back and forth to folks also. So I think the short answer, it's work, the signage, the patrols. I think let's get through this and see what the fall brings.
I'd like to add to your comment about the motorcycle officer. I have received a number of comments from residents. They were very impressed with us having a cop on a motorcycle around town. They thought it was a plus. Seemed to be able to communicate well with people. They wanted to stop and ask questions. It's a really good program, and we can measure the success by the end of the summer, and might want to consider how we could make something like that a little more permanent for the department.
Yeah, most definitely. We've between that and the officers assigned there, we've been able to react very quickly to when situations arise. And I think the people that live in those areas are very pleased, very pleased. So this is a good discussion when it comes for next budget year. We have to have this discussion. Al, if you're hearing me, we have to discuss the additional officers. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? I think the additional police presence down there has been terrific and definitely noticed by all the residents. The one area of the road that I think is problematic, and I just want to say it in public and have the chief say it, the area, if you're walking, the area where there's the sidewalk and on one side, and it's a very narrow portion of the road, and there's a big wall on the other side. So I've taken a very informal poll of some people that I know, and nobody's clear on if you're walking from the beach club towards Hammonasset, should you walk on the sidewalk or should you walk by the wall? And nobody seems to know. Even the people that are avid runners and bikers and whatnot, it's just such a weird stretch of the road. So first of all, where are you supposed to walk? And second of all, should we consider putting some sort of signage up along the sidewalk so it's clear?
I think that in the legal centric world, runners, walkers should walk facing traffic, bicyclists should go with traffic. In the case of that area there, that was part of the rebuilt road when they had the destruction from the storms, one year after the other. Sight lines were an issue. What they had to work with was an issue. The historic stone walls were an issue. There's a lot of there was a lot of factors to that. It's very difficult. I understand, and we go through it, we see it. People try to navigate that. I think that because of the impact of COVID, the summer's upon us. The increase in recreation as people want out of their house, increase in bike. I see a lot more, used to see maybe 2 or 3 rollerblades or the inline skates, and now there seems to be quite an impact of that. And skateboards and all things with wheels, and people walking in carriages. So we try to, that, if you might recall during the DOT study, they said we should have a blinking yellow light there, which I don't think was popular with the people that live in the area. So we've forgone that. We could consider that again, but I don't think that'd be a popular thing. So I think what we do is the speed does reduce through there. It's still too high for speed bumps because that would affect people, their vehicles. If we have speed bumps on a municipal road and the speed limit is posted above, well, certainly 5-10 miles an hour, you're going to have impact on people's bodies when they go over that, especially older folks, even when they're doing the proper speed, and any damage to the car, which the town becomes liable. So.
Well, I guess I understand that there's nothing we can really do in that area. And I guess my question really is, if you're running towards Hammonasset, do you go on the sidewalk or do you go up against the wall?
Could
Nobody
you-
seems to know, because if you go on the
Okay.
sidewalk, you're crossing people within 6 feet.
Well,
Certainly,
that's the social distancing is a challenge.
yeah.
Could you perhaps appeal to common sense? If someone is running next to the wall and they see a car coming, shouldn't it only happen once before they realize they ought to be on the sidewalk?
Is that where they should be?
I'm not saying that where they should be, as the chief just explained, with all the restrictions that are there. I know if I was running or roller skating, not rollerblading, and I had to stay next to that wall, I would only do it once if a car was coming, following me, and how close it was, or 2 cars were convening at the same spot. I understand your question, and I'm not being glib, but I think common sense sort of takes over and says, get on the sidewalk and stay alive for 150 feet.
We've mitigated, we've over patrolled that area. So I don't know, I mean, other than
There's
reduce
no good
people's
answer.
access, okay, you have to wait, it's your turn, it's not your turn. I mean, people, when they come upon somebody, they're running or bikes, they all swing out. So they end up in the middle of the road. Now, we know that, we go down the road, so we kind of go slow. We anticipate they're gonna swing out because there's somebody walking there. One may have a mask on, one may not have a mask on. So it's not, that wasn't an issue in July of last year. But obviously add the COVID to this and proper distancing and of course PPE, it changes the dynamic. Speeds do slow down through there. I'm happy for that. Every once in a while, somebody is in a hurry and tries to get through there, but it's very hard. You have a lot of traffic, a lot of people. I think we've done the best of that situation, short adding minus absent the signs.
I guess I'm still unclear, and I think everybody's unclear. I mean, I don't
Well,
want to try to pin you down, but
No, you
I
can
know
pin me
there's
down.
no
If
good
you're running, you run with traffic, you bike with traffic, you walk against traffic. Now, if there's room on the sidewalk, I'd use it. If there's not room on the sidewalk, I wouldn't use it. I go around them like other people do. If there's 2 or 3 couples coming, I'm going to swing out. And generally, somebody walking dogs, you know, there's a lot of dynamic to it. The only other thing we do is slow it down to a crawl and mitigate it that way with blinking yellow signs or a lot of signage.
yeah, I want to be on the record. I'm not looking for, traffic mitigating measures. I just want to know what, I honestly don't know in that situation where I should be. And it seems like whatever you do, somebody's mad at you because they think you should be doing the opposite.
Connecticut Bar Association, one of their gatherings, probably by Zoom, had a discussion on this most recently because of the influx of people on the shorelines. And I want to say the person that released it was a Attorney Harrington out of the London area. And in what he wrote, he reminded people just what I stated. Bike with traffic, run with traffic, walk against facing traffic so they see you. I would hope that the drivers would exercise caution, slow down, realize that in this, most certainly those that travel the beach roads, people are going to swing out into the road in order to avoid contact with somebody. I had a woman who called in and wanted to let me know that she got brushed by a bicyclist. We tried to follow up. She was just wanted to let me know. So I don't think we want to really, we've gone over, I'll use the term, we've gone overboard on patrolling there. We really have a lot of concentration of patrol and enforcement and officers that are watching that. So most certainly more than any other road in the town of Madison right now. So I think that if we go too intrusive, we're going to have those that are going to push back saying you're going too far now. We get it. It's common sense. So, but there are those without common sense. You're right. Ed, you're muted.
There's no doubt that is a tough, unsolvable corner, and the only thing you can just urge people, as you said, is to, if you're jogging, maybe you need to slow down even more. If you're walking, you've got to, either do the unthinkable, and that is come to a stop so that somebody can pass coming the other way. But that is just a tough corner to solve. For when you said, okay, Murphy's Law says the bike, the car, and two walkers going in opposite directions meet right at the turn. It's just tough. Somebody's got to really stop. But anyway, appreciate the difficulty of it. Chief, other points on, I didn't mean to derail us in terms of Middle Beach Road, and there actually are other Madison topics that we need to cover. So I'm sorry to get us off track on that.
Okay. I'm trying to get back on track there.
Okay. I think we're on correspondence. Chief's correspondence.
I have numerous. How would you like me to convey that to you? I think I had 20 something.
Why don't you try to summarize them if you could? I know we've got some in our packet. I know there's some that relate to traffic issues, but the other general correspondence, since we don't all have it, if you could just, briefly summarize, the tone and the concern or questions people have.
Okay, so, well, we have a lot of people that are sending us letters of support, and folks that they keep feeding us sweets. So I appreciate that from my thin officers. But we received a generous donation from a bakery shop from Mr. Greg Butler and the Honorable Themis Clearness, who, as you recall, was Speaker of the House. And they live on Governor's Way in Madison, Connecticut now. And I thank them for their kind letter and kind gesture. Penn McNerney, who's one of our reporters, not once but twice, she's come in with coffee, donuts, assorted cookies and things to that. And just a little side note, she's doing a piece on policing, and she's really she's doing a great job. She's going to come back to us last. She was going talking to other agencies, but she came in and she always seems to remember us, and I appreciate that. And of course, a letter went out to her. A letter from Bill and Danny Woods from Middle Beach Road, thanking us for our efforts on Middle Beach Road. And I thank them for their support. If they live close to where East Wharf and the beach is. David Borkowski and family, he came in and wanted to buy the police department pizzas. So we thank him for his generosity and for his letter of support for the agency. Mike and Connie at Piccione, again, they a letter of support, and also that they send and recognize what first responders do, and of course they, again, food items, and we thank you. We also received a tray of cookies from Laureen Eller and Sophia Pompili of Madison. And again, I thank them. And I like the notes some folks write handwritten notes and they thank us for all that we do. And we're very appreciative that people observe this. There's a note here, actually, I received a letter from Dr. Henry Lee that he's retiring, but he's still staying, I guess, the emeritus at New Haven, University of New Haven, and will continue to raise funds for the Dr. Lee Institute. Those you don't recall, I first met Dr. Henry Lee in my early days at Connecticut State Police when he was a young, fresh from the Taiwanese police scientist who joined the Connecticut State Police Crime Lab. Henry is a dear friend. He's also a neighbor. I'll be sad to see him step down, and I think most of you folks know Henry. He's not stepping down. He'll still be there. So it's hard to give up. I'll tell you what, he looks great. I hope when I attain that age, if I do, that I look that good. John Palmer, I answered a letter from Rich Bansill, and he had a problem on Middle Beach Road, a call for service, and John Palmer arrived on bike, and he was impressed by this. And so he wrote a letter thanking the officers of Madison, particularly Officer Palmer, and the efforts we're making to control the situation on Middle Beach Road. The What's Cooking restaurant has continues to support the police department, and not only with a letter of support in cookies and baked goods, but she's one of our stellar participants for the Special Olympics. She never forgets that, and I appreciate of that. I'm appreciated for what they do. Rebecca Dolehite had what's going on currently within the police community in the United States and what's happening with policing in this country. She wrote a letter requesting information, things that she was unaware of. Generally, I tried to call people direct, but she was a little bit hard. She left an email. So we have had a discussion briefly, and the letter has been sent to her as of yesterday, highlighting what we've done in the police and asking her, welcoming her to come in and have a further discussion if she wishes. One of the key fundamentals of this agency is we are transparent. We'll continue that. We have we have received words of encouragement from a woman external to the town of Meriden who does come through Madison, external to the town of Madison, who lives in Meriden, Miss Amelia Rogers, and she thanks us for all that we do. She wanted us to know that we support our police and during these times. We received another letter of appreciation from Miss Marlene Beckman from Madison. Again, she thanks she had an interpersonal with Officer Phillips and Officer Jakubowski. She gave them a 5-star rating. I'm assuming a 5. So I thank Marlene for that letter, for her kindness, and she also received a letter from us. I have some more that came today, some related to traffic, which I'll talk over during traffic, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Ed, you're on mute.
Why don't we refer the traffic letters to traffic? And just in terms of the general correspondence, did we receive any letters of anyone expressing any concerns about the Madison Police Department?
We did, sir. We see a letter went out today because he's a professor at Brown University, and he was curious in discussing our application of how we use the vehicles that we received in the 1033 program, which are I think some people refer to them as the tank. And we don't have a tank. We have an MRAP, which is decommissioned. It does not have a turret. We decommissioned that. We painted it white to be less intrusive. There isn't any cross rifles or SWAT team on it or any of that. We use it as a rescue vehicle. And I haven't used it in an offensive position. It's been here 6 years. A lot of that came to us right after the Newtown, the terrible year that we dealt with the results of the Newtown shootings. And we met with a lot of parents, and we knew that we had to shore up what we had to able to respond to an active shooter situation, whether it be in a school or in the community somewhere. So and the dialogue during most of those meetings were folks that maybe weren't fond of having armed officers in the schools via the SRO program. Were very much at that point insistent on it, and it was overwhelming. I think, Al, you were in some of those meetings, you might recall. So we elected to get that vehicle, but it turned out interesting is that we extended the exhaust on it so that we can go through 5-8 feet of water. And that's been the main use of that vehicle since we've had it. We go out and it's full moon, a nor'easter, and we have water all over the beach roads, Circle Beach, all through that area. And the people get stranded in their driveways, and we've used that multiple times. I think we've used it 3 times so far this year. So that's our intent. And incidentally, I also had an inquiry with the Hartford Courant. I had a nice conversation with Alex Putterman, who's writing an article on it. And he agreed that, you know, he agreed that our use is traditionally different than what they've seen with some of the other agencies who run it every day throughout their city. You know, I use the term, I believe it should be a mature application administration of the tool that was given to us, such as the way we use it. And I would think that that would comply with what public policy was when they first distributed those.
Well, you know, one of the things that certainly if it's primarily used for a rescue vehicle, might we have the word rescue in bold prominent letters painted on it? Obviously, it could be used in an extraordinary situation involving an active shooter, but you know, given the scarcity or the fact that I know anything is possible, but it's certainly much more likely that this vehicle is going to be used to get people out of their homes along the shoreline than it is likely to be used in a hostage standoff situation. So I don't know. I know that the current one continue. I know there's some issues with the paint that you know, it's difficult to, you can't really, you know, remove the paint because of the nature of it. But you know, we should just certainly emphasize that is an important part of you know, the public safety from a rescue, you know, point of view. And it's not because we think we're going to need to repel a beach landing at some point. So, you know, if there's some way we can emphasize that, so when someone does see it, they realize that's its purpose, I think that would be very helpful.
Well, it's kind of cycling, obviously, because of the times right now. But I mean, we have never abused that. We've had that in our inventory. We had one before that,
I know.
a smaller version, an older post-Cold War piece of equipment, which we returned. And it was actually, you know, it was hard to keep it. It takes, the maintenance we do is in-house, you know, and it's just, has to be plugged in, has to be ready to respond. We have to drive it so many weeks just to get started up. We do all that stuff. There has not been a general major expense to it. And the second part of that is that I had one guy, he said to me, well, I talked to shootings or rescue, and he said, well, how often does that happen? I said, well, what part? He said, well, like a school shooting. I said, I think one would be too many. I said, so this is in our inventory. I said, I have a gun, but I don't wave it around. I said, it's an inventory used as a rescue tool. That's it. I said, we belong to a regional response team where we have trained operators, people that are trained in extraordinary skills for policing. And we have, and with that organization, they have equipment that is purchased through the communities that is used in that application. Ours is it's a rescue victim. We have used it before. We had an armed individual, you might recall, that escaped. I went into the woods. We had assistance from over 100 different officers, and Homeland Security sent helicopters. You might recall that up north. And we had the year before that the same thing, an escapee in the community. So when people say, well, stuff never happens here, I'm like, I wish that were the case. It's not true. And you have to be prepared. As I said, I think that a mature, reasonable administration of that tool given by the program is would be public policy on how it should be applied. And as I said, I've seen other agencies and things all marked up. It looks ominous. You know, ours looks like a fuel truck, just square and it's white. You know, doesn't have anything extraordinary sticking out of it or look like it's a tank. So, and generally, when people ask me that, I encourage them to come in and see it and talk. So, the last gentleman, the letter went out to him, and we'll see if he contacts me. But I did speak with the Hartford Current. I even showed him the pictures, and we had a great conversation. So, Ed, you're muted.
Thank you. Any other correspondence, or we pretty well captured the, it sounds like it was a extraordinary inpouring of support for it. Anything else we need to talk about in terms of correspondence?
Well, it goes to traffic, if I may, and then because I'd like to, I know I have those short videos I want to show, and the discussion of policing. I have one today was from Christina Zimmerman, and she lives on Bourbon Road, which you know is parallels Route 1 downtown. And the problem there is that people will shoot off Route 1 and zip along and get to East Wharf and make a right-hand turn. So there's a lot of, the homes have been sold. There are other folks living there now with children. A lot of folks have parked their cars there and take out the strollers and go downtown. There are people walking and bicyclists. So based on, I haven't talked to her yet. I've read her email today, but I believe that perhaps some signage, perhaps something limiting access to that. She suggested speed bumps. Once again, I'm not a fan of them because I don't want, they cause other issues. I think that we could mitigate it with proper signage or restrict entry into the road. It's part of the town of Madison's road. I think we have the authority within this board, and most certainly myself as the traffic authority.
Okay.
So,
well, we just obviously, as we generally have done with traffic issues, we'll get the town engineer, John Anako, involved in it, and certainly it's something that Tom, you've been helping assess some of this. So we have a log for it. Let's make sure it gets logged in as a traffic issue, and we will handle it in a timely way. So I think I appreciate that you just.
okay. The second letter I have is, and this is a request for a study.
Mhm.
And it involves Neck Road. It's from Mr. John Ellis, and I believe he may be here in the online attending the meeting, and perhaps you want him to comment, we could. Yeah, he just raised his hand. So the letter comes from him with about 2, 4, 6, 8 residents of Neck Road asking for requesting a study and a speed reduction on the road. So I have no problem requesting DOT do a traffic study on the road, and then whatever the suggestions that follow, probably reduction in speed, perhaps more signage, maybe perhaps down the road a speed sign would be appropriate. So I guess with your concurrence, if you don't have any additional questions, I'd like to order a study, request DOT to do a study on Neck Road. And if you would like, I see Mr. Ellis is here. Let's look some of the names. If you'd like to invite Mr. Ellis to speak to it.
Let me, I don't know if Mr. Ellis, if you'd like to, what I would suggest, it was a very well-written, comprehensive description of the problems and the concerns as you and your neighbors see it. And that is part of our information package. So if there's any additional comments that you might like to make to supplement the letter, I thought, as I said, it was a very comprehensive letter. Please do so. As the chief said, it certainly sounds like it justifies a thorough evaluation and study that we would generally conduct, when concerns at this level are raised. So, Stellis, please, if you want to supplement your letter with some brief comments, please do so.
I'm going to attempt to reach out to later, probably next week with Mr. Ellis, but I'm going to prepare the letter requesting that Mr. Sawicki's office at DOT put it on the agenda, their schedule to do a study. You folks are well with that?
Yes.
Fine. I think that's the next logical step.
I'd like to add on Neck Road. I just received a letter from Christy tonight from Jim and Alicia Craven. And they spoke to some of the issues on Neck Road as well. And it is one of the best letters that I have ever received from a resident addressing their concerns and some of the practical solutions. So that will be in the packet for next month's meeting, only because it arrived just today, but it should definitely be an addition to the chief's packet to the DOT for study and review. It's a great letter speaking to what's going on down there, and some of the suggestions are very well done.
Yeah. Tom, I think I misspoke. That was the letter I was referring to. It was,
Okay, from Jim, from the
I
Cravens.
apologize.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Ellis has his hand up if you want me to allow him to speak.
Please do so.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes.
can.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, John Ellis, 27 Ridgewood. Thanks for letting me talk. And I had hoped that everybody would look at it and say, this is a worthwhile project. But well, two things. One is we were rushing to get something to you. So I literally could get hundreds of people to sign that. And if you think it's worthwhile, we'll go through all the associations, but it's just difficult, as you can imagine, these times. So my hope was that you all know Neck Road. You can appreciate that there's some problems there. It's been that way forever. And it's not, I don't look at it as a problem. I think it's a great asset that all these people walk. I say hello to people when I go by. So I would never want to discourage them, just like on Middle Beach Road, where I also grew up. But I would like to sort of see if there's any way we can fast track the lowering of the speed from the Mercy Center to the end, or even a little bit before. I've been using Mercy Center, but there's actually a curve before that I realized. But I feel like with COVID, there are a lot more people walking, and there are always people walking and bicycling and running. And looking at other streets in Madison, 25 miles an hour is not out of the question. I mean, if you were looking at, I mean, I've got a list of all the streets, and you probably know, and they're a lot more rural and bigger streets, which I don't argue with them being at 25 miles an hour, but it just seems like it's something that people should be able to look at and say, oh yeah, absolutely, this should be 25 miles, no question about it. And to get that rolling, and then signage, other things we could suggest, whether it's a stop sign or something written across the street, or the little triangle dots, triangle caution sections. But I guess that's all I have to say at this point. Maybe I can talk to the chief later this week or see how things are progressing. That would be great.
Okay.
So, thank you very much, Chief.
Yeah, just, I think I probably should get a response from them within 30 days. But what's happening on that road, I don't know if you're aware, there's gonna be major construction on your road with Connecticut Water Company.
Well, we were wondering when that was ever going to happen.
Oh, they're lining up the construction now. We had a meeting last week, and they had another meeting earlier today. So that's gonna start relatively soon, and there's gonna be a police presence on that road. It's gonna be restricted. So that in itself is gonna slow down a lot of the traffic. I know that Mercy Center, obviously not operational there anymore, has slowed some of the impact. But I know that because there are more people on the roads, well, certainly related to what's going on with COVID-19, that it is challenging. But I just want to make sure you do that. If what I'm going to do is the best way, and I'll give you a number, you can reach out to me.
Okay.
203-245-6502. And if I don't get back, just leave a message. I'll get back to you right away.
Okay. No, you will. Thanks a
All
lot.
right. Is there anybody else that's here that's related to the Neck Road enforcements?
Well, Jim was responding to the letter. I had sent him a copy of this. And so if he's online, he may have something else he wants to say, but.
Okay, I have just recommended, I'm going to continue that we move forward and have the study done.
Okay,
Good.
great.
Thank you. Chief?
All right, and the last one I have is that we addressed you might recall we had a request for signage up by Rockland Preserve.
Yes.
And so that request is made also with the speed reduction up there. I sent the letter on May 15th, post our May meeting. requesting that Dave Sawicki, the Executive Director for Traffic Administration, a perform a test. I did receive the response back, so that's in their hopper. Outside that, I don't have any other related to traffic. Tom, unless you have something that came in.
No, I don't have anything else that's traffic related. I have to get together with John over the course of the next week and review some of the things that are pending. So we
Yeah.
can mark those as complete and we can report on that in the next meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Christy, you're on. If you could make sure they're added to the log. And also, I just want to address very briefly, there's concern that the speed sign on Green Hill at Cops is not operational. We keep trying. We've had that service twice within the last 90 days, and we're having a problem with it. I'm not sure if it's strictly to vandalism, but we maybe just replace that with one of the ones we have inventory for another location just to get us through when the school year starts. But I know we had a letter today, an email from someone concerned about it that hasn't been addressed. It has. It's one, we have to go out of state for parts and things to that effect, and we use an electrician, and we've worked on it twice, like I said, in the last 3 months, and it's still not operating fully. It may have to do with part of the components, but we're working on it. And the worst scenarios, we're going to replace it with another operation we have in inventory. Also, John, if you are talking to John, you might remind him I still need the ones on Route 1.
There is one other thought. Maybe it's because of the COVID and whatever, but the speed on Route 1 approaching town, especially from the Guilford area, seems to have been dramatically increased. Last year, we had a portable flashing sign advising to the speed limit and advising proximity to town. What are the chances of getting some signage back in that location just to advise folks to slow down a bit? Town's there.
No, that's scheduled to be replaced. That's why I'm saying when you talk to John, just remind him. I still have that request. That's one of the signs. We're going to move it back towards the curve as you come into town, right prior to the country club driveways. So we're going to move it there, but we just have to make sure we have the proper height, not only for the radar read, but also people coming out of West Wharf that are making a left-hand turn, they have, or right, that they have the sight line is not impeded by the device.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good move. Chief, I know we've got some other things we want to cover under current issues, so why don't we move to that topic at this point?
Okay. What I'd like to do is I'd like to, I obviously the national conversation and probably international conversation comes into people that have died or have been assaulted at the hands of, I'm going to use the term, bad police officers. So I get asked as to what has Madison been doing in regards to this issue. I'm proud to say that Madison is a dual accredited police agency. You folks all know that, but we've told the community, but I'm going to remind them that we're a CALEA, Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies. We're advanced, we're dual accredited. The only one in the state of Connecticut, the only one in New England, one of 33 others in the country. That is best practices that we follow to avoid situations such as that. We also have we're the oldest agency in the state of Connecticut using body cams. We've gone through a research and development by different brands, but the last 3 years have been very successful. One of the vendors, and we have an in-house server that we use. We do not use the cloud because that information is evidence. And I don't want to lose it in the cloud or have it corrupted. That being said, that when we have incidents of complying with the standards, best practices in CALEA, those of you that have seen, we have an annual report. In the annual report, we put all our responses to use of force. And that's when force is used, and that's not only is what you may think is drawing a weapon or using a capstun agent or using a taser, but it's also we put handcuffs on people. We note that in a report, and we do an after action to that, and we publish it annually in January, February. So we're somewhat ahead of the curve. Now take it to conjunction with that, the training we have in de-escalation and CIT. So Madison has gone forth on this and has really worked hard. In addition to this, when the Racial Profiling Prohibition Project came into being approximately 6 years ago, in the year of 2017, Madison was identified as having a high stoppage of in interaction with people of color. And that was done based on statistics that we submitted. Investigation of that determined that the impact of ham and acid in the beaches during the summer brings into the town an extensive population. We're talking over 20, 30,000 daily during the summer. And most certainly people use ham and acid and other during the winter months for walks and dogs. And so, and we would perform a lot of enforcement speed-wise by the use of radar. And it was determined that our stops were not a deliberate stop per person of color. They were a deliberate blind spot, meaning that if you're, example, looking at the connector, at the bottom of the connector, if officers running an operation with radar and he's at the crest of the hill, when that car comes over, it's still several hundreds of feet away. They couldn't tell who was driving that car. They just know that they can identify the car by the lane when it breaks into the radar plane. So the study was done, and of course, the Racial Profiling Prohibition Project agreed to my assessing it, and they did their own investigation and study, and we came out as I believe you'll see in the video we're going to show you. They stated we were the most transparent that they dealt with, and nothing but cooperative with the project, which I was very happy to get. Subsequently, that involvement, they asked that I participate in the project in a more formal fashion. That's subcommittees with the General Assembly. The first one is a video. Joe will show the first video as to the project, the second video as to the testimony in regards to racial profiling and policing. Okay, so if you gonna bring that up on the screen? All right. This first video is about 3 minutes. The second video is about 12 minutes. Is the sound on, Joe?
No.
No sound, Joe. Joe, I'm mute your. Joe, I'm mute.
To determine.
Now?
My name is Ken Barone. I'm the project manager for the Connecticut Racial Profiling Prohibition Project.
Can't hear it, Joe.
From a personal standpoint, I don't want to think that in any way to targeting a certain group of people. I didn't want to believe that. I did not really understand the project when it first came out. I heard things that were negative to the project when it first came out.
Joe, we can hear it, but it's just not loud enough. If you could turn it up.
Yeah. I think you changed the buffering on it.
3,000 residents year round. Almost 96% of their population is a white non-Hispanic resident. There are really three major roadways in Madison where the vast majority of motor vehicle enforcement occurs. You have Route 1, that's where restaurants are, shops are, and other entertainment in and around that road. You then have Route 79, which is a major thoroughfare for traffic into Madison from communities north of Madison. And then the next major roadway that impacts traffic enforcement is Route 450, which is also known as the Hammonasset State Parkway. That's the main road off 95 to go to the beach. Hammonasset State Beach plays a big role in attracting people to that part of the state. The entire community of Madison totally changes in those summer months. We're a small agency. We're 31 offices, and I have to go to part-timers. We have a lot of high impact through tax savings. For us, our priority, and we were pointing out in the study, is that we try to slow down traffic on the volume in the street. For us, the radar technology is the best approach. We're stable in the study. We're blind. You have no idea who's studying it. I
I don't think anybody can hear. I certainly can't. Is there a way we could adjust the volume louder and replay that?
At 5 o'clock when it's light out in the summer.
Yeah.
5 o'clock in the summer.
Or is this something that could be sent to us after the meeting and we could view it on our own?
Maybe that's the way to do it, if we can't do it, because it's worthwhile. It's a worthwhile video to see, I know, because I've seen it.
And let me,
I mean, I think if we can play this for the public, that would be great. If it's impossible, then let's get it sent to us for sure.
So we lost Joe. Oh no, Joe's there. So given the technical difficulties, Chief, what would be? I mean, I think to Marietta's point, it would be helpful to provide this for the public. And I don't know if we can post it on our website, or we can certainly work through the technical difficulties and show it at next month's meeting after, you know, and we'll certainly have a chance to review it, but it is a helpful piece of public information. So what would your...
Two things. Captain, you're on mute. I don't know if that has anything to do with the audio problems. And secondly, this is on the town website. One of the audience participants just sent a message saying that it's on the town website already. Is that correct, Chief?
it should be, we uploaded it to the town website, both videos. Or actually, I think the first one, the second one should be also put up there. Joe, we'll make sure we do that tomorrow. Okay, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties.
Well, but we should also, you know, I think if someone has the interest, they should go to the town website, because it is a very informative video about dealing with, you know, certainly a key aspect of policing, and it's an issue that was raised at the state level. So and by the way, it's not like we've dealt with this issue. Let's move on. I think this is going to be an ongoing topic, obviously. So, Chief, maybe in addition to the videos that will reinforce, suggest the Madison citizens look at on our website, are there other elements of current issues that you think be helpful to discuss?
Right. We've been out in front of this for most certainly the last 3 years, and most certainly why we've been through the CLIA process and maintaining our accreditation. I probably wish that more of my contemporaries in this position throughout the state would be more involved. We get the message out whenever any opportunity presents itself. I was asked last week, I spoke on a WebEx with over 1,000 participants through the Racial Profiling Prohibition Project, and they had it with a panel, 5 of us, and it went through the WebEx of Central Connecticut State University. So it was a very candid conversation with folks from the clergy, folks from the inner city, folks from other areas, and it was great. It really was, and I think that they were very complimentary to the town of Madison for what we do to change the culture that still persists in policing. You have to remember, there's over 325 million people. There's less than 800,000 police officers. Subsequently, like a lot of professions, there's probably 10%, the bottom 10% probably has no business being in policing. If you were to go across the country, you'll find that where the East or West Coast may exceed and excel in policing for law enforcement, there's parts of the country they do not. You know, not necessarily rural areas, but you see a trend in some of the southern states, you see a trend in some of the Midwest states. You know, for myself, I was on a call with Ronell Higgins from Yale University Police, and the video came to us, and first thing I said is, I'm so sad. We're better than this in America. I think the public needs to understand that in policing, good police officers deplore bad police officers more than you could ever imagine. It creates this. what we're going through now. Right now, while we're talking, there are hundreds of thousands of calls for service satisfactorily answered, and police are responding to everywhere in this country right now. You know, it's just a sad statement. So we most certainly contribute to the dialogue. We most certainly contribute to changing people's approach, you know, changing policing approach. It changes. I think that there are some people probably in this profession that should no longer be in this profession. I think if you don't want to change and go with what's happening in this country, then maybe you should really reconsider what you're doing for a living. We make every effort we can to be fair and impartial. We make every effort we can to be transparent. I think that our reputation precedes you on this, particularly after the dark days of the Madison Police Department. We rebuilt the department. A lot of effort has gone into that, not only with the members of the agency or the leadership of the agency, most certainly the leadership of the police commission and other members of other boards in the town that supported us and gave us the tools to change the culture, to put us in the forefront of proper policing. So we'll continue to do what we do, get the message out. We still will continue to participate, most certainly on the state stage, we'll say, and trying to find fair and equitable policing across this state and most certainly across this country.
Okay, thank you. Why don't we, you know, I'd like to say something, but I'll hold them for the commissioner comments portion of it. Why don't we move into that mode? And you know, I think we are going through a transition in terms of re-examination of police and policing and a number of other issues in this country. And clearly the events of the gathering last weekend, you know, shows that while Madison is an extraordinary safe community, you know, we're also not totally separated and immune from issues of concern and people wanting to express their feelings. So, you know, I think, Chief, this is something that you know, want it or not, you're the head of the agency. You have the responsibility, the obligation, and you've done an extraordinary job, you know, leaving your fingerprints on this department, because you know, I came on the board as, you know, part of a change, as did other board members in 2010, and you know, I think we worked very hard, and when I say we, you and your officers did all the heavy lifting. You know, the commission was trying to be supportive, but you and your officers are the one that has reestablished the trust with the community. And, you know, that is, we all know that is fragile. I mean, and every day, you know, we send out people and you're not there, Captain Race is not there. They are making their decisions, and I think you know, they represent certainly all their officers, and so we just, as a commission, I think, need to push hard to make sure we remain open and talk about things that are uncomfortable and consider not explanation or excuses, but if there are incidents that involve a Madison police officer, you know, we continue, I think, under your leadership and Captain Race's leadership, you know, not explain them away, but say we're going to investigate them vigorously, no matter how comfortable it may be. And so I think we're not going to be in a position where we said we've dealt with that subject in the spring of 2002. I think it's something we're going to continue to need to re-examine how effective we are and how we continue to kind of earn the trust by the people we hire, by the people we promote in the Madison Police Department, and the supervision and leadership, you know, that is provided. So we're going to talk, you know, this is not intended to be anywhere of a speech, but I think as commissioners, we have a responsibility to provide some level of oversight and some public input. We are not trained or qualified to be police officers and oversee investigations and plan operations, but certainly, you know, I think we've had a very effective self-serving comment, but we've had a cohesive police commission, and I think we need to continue to provide that right balance of support and also oversight, you know, as we move forward. It's just too important, you know, for us to assure that, you know, we maintain the standards. One of the things that I've certainly have learned that it's no longer acceptable for me to use the word "the police." As the chief said, there are some bad policemen, and you cannot take this brush of an incident that happens in a different town, in a different city, and say that represents someone who wears a blue uniform because he or she happens to be a police officer and they're in Madison, Connecticut. Well, I think as the chief said, you know, we're not immune from what's going on, but, you know, we have the standard. It is the standard in Madison, and that's what we're going to adhere to. And it's something that is, as I said, it should be a very high standard moving forward. So let me stop there and ask just if there are other commissioner comments.
If I may,
Yes.
Joe, if you could allow me to share screen, let me see if I can get this going. Tell me if this works.
No audio.
There's
We have
no
no
audio.
audio.
No sound.
Chief, why don't we put it on the website?
All right.
Okay. Okay, can we get back to the regular Zoom call so we can finish up with commissioner comments, please?
Okay, I guess it's there now. We'll add the second one tomorrow, Joe. If you hear me?
Yes, sir. I'll put it up tomorrow.
Okay,
Before we get
Okay.
to commissioner comments, there was going to be some information passed along to us about the event coming up this weekend.
Chief, did you hear Commissioner Cartledge's comment?
Chief, what I had said, I'm not sure if it was muted. You were going to share with us what you anticipate and expect for this event, the weekend coming up.
Doesn't seem like he can hear.
He's not hearing me.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
There, we can hear
Yeah.
you now. Yep.
Chief, did you
my
hear,
request?
did you hear Tom's comment? Question? Chief?
I lost the audio.
Zoom calls can be fun.
Define fun.
Right.
I'll
Okay.
send him a text with the question. Maybe he can answer because we can hear him.
Joe, can you hear?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay. Captain, maybe do you want to just go down and ask him if he could just comment on the upcoming event? I guess it's the March this weekend.
Yes, sir, I'll walk down there.
Okay, thank you.
I just sent him a message, so maybe he'll
Okay.
get it.
No, never mind. Thank you.
Joe, I got a technical thing I'm trying to take care of.
We can hear you now. Can you?
Chief,
Joe,
not if
maybe
you can hear
grab
us.
maybe you can grab
Not
the
if you
chief
can
and
hear
have
us.
an answer from your office.
Nope, he can't hear us. Up.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
We're good. Okay, I can hear. What's the question?
Question was, can you address the commission as to what the event plan this weekend is and what you expect?
Okay, on Saturday, the 13th, there's going to be a march planned. It's not on the green, it's on the grounds. It's originating from Meeting House Lane. And again, the First Congregational Church, and it's their youth diversity group that is sponsoring, putting this on. I want to emphasize it's not a gathering on the green. I want to emphasize that they are all going to be wearing masks. I want to emphasize they are going to be properly spaced. That's the intent. These folks, some of the folks were involved with external organizations to the town that want to participate earlier in the group from last week, and they wanted to be more vocal. And we asked that we mitigate and direct them so that we could probably come up with a compromise, and that's where we are today with this march. We anticipate 300-400, maybe more folks marching in this short march, which is going to leave from Meeting House Lane, cross Route 1, head down West Wharf, make a left on Middle Beach, make a left on Middle Beach West, make a left back on Island, and come back to the green. Those who want to go a little bit further will go continue up Academy Street, make a left on Bradley, a left back on Cops, and back into the church grounds. At that time, they will have a brief follow-up ceremony to the event, talking of racial profiling and policing in this country.
What time is it scheduled to start?
Tom, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
What time is it scheduled to start?
Well, it's anticipated they will gather at 1300 hours at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm not quite sure when they'll get the step off going. We hope to get it by 1:30 so that we could close the event prior to 3 o'clock. We originally looked at different routes. They were very, very cognizant of the merchants that are struggling, that are trying to get back open, that are operational on a limited basis due to the governor's directives. And because of that, we're staying away from the downtown area.
Okay. Yeah, it's, I know that this is a pretty fluid situation, so perhaps as we get closer to the event, Chief, you or Captain Reyes can just, give us just a brief summary of how things are looking, or let me know, and I'll get an email out to everyone in case there's any additional information that you think may be helpful for us to know.
We're finalizing the plans. We will have a Zoom meeting tomorrow with some of the organizers that will probably be going out before Joe and I secure for this evening. We had some other logistics that we had to accomplish today, which we have. We're probably going to put out a message to people in the area in regards to the affected neighborhoods. As I said, there will be affected people on the road, but it will not be for a long period of time.
Okay, thank you. So let me.
And we don't have any intelligence to tell us that there will be disruptions from within this community. We'll do our best that if we have external forces that arrive that would like to disrupt, we'll do our best to dissuade them.
You'll be closing Route 1 then to traffic.
Briefly.
Okay. Yeah. It is
Going
what it
to
will
divert
be.
the traffic off, Chief, you're going to divert the traffic off Route 1 or just put it on hold as the march progresses?
What clarification needs? I'm not quite understanding.
I was wondering where you're going to stop the traffic perhaps at 79 going west on Route 1 and have them go up there rather than have traffic backed up through town?
Well, we have people covering different posts. We have some of our regional partners also covering different posts. Example, some of they've been given permission to park at some of the parking lots throughout town to minimize the impact downtown. So we have police officers on post to accommodate folks turning in, coming out, and crossing the street so that nobody gets hurt. In addition to that, the Route 1 has a contingency plan for all things accidents, disruptions on I-95. We follow that protocol when we have events such as the parade. So this is very brief. We're talking, what, 8 minutes of crossing, 5 minutes? So that's what it is. Where we do it, it depends on what the crowd is, Tom. It may be on the south side of the road, and maybe down the road. It depends on how many folks we have and how we have them, the organizers, keep the folks at acceptable social distancing. So my guess is probably 5 across and somebody to the rear.
Okay. Yeah,
It shouldn't be a concern. We'll be fine.
yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of last minute decisions made with it. So I appreciate that. I also want to just to make sure that we don't truncate what I think is also an important part of the meeting, and that is the commissioner comments. So before I move to that, is there any other agenda item questions for the chief that anyone may have at this point?
Ed, I don't have any questions, and actually I apologize. I didn't realize the meeting was going to go so long, but I do need to leave the meeting at this time.
Okay.
If that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. We did run a little longer this evening. Thank you, Ann.
No, thank you. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you. Let me, just so I know we're stretching things out here, but Marietta, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciated your comments and the chief's comments on everything that's going on. It certainly is a stressful time for America and around the world between COVID and the recent riots that were spurred by the death of George Floyd. But, you know, like the chief said, there are bad cops out there for sure. And what happened was inexcusable, but I think it's important that we remember there are many good cops out there who are out there every day risking their lives and doing good work. And, you know, our country's going through a terrible time. And I think it's important that we remember the good cops. And, you know, personally from me, and I think from the residents of the town of Madison, thank you to the police department for everything that you've done to get us through COVID-19. And I think, you know, while sentiment across America and the TV news coverage and everything is very negative, I think most of America is very, very grateful to our policemen and women. So thank you.
Thank you. Well said. Tom?
These are very difficult times, what with the virus and the recent events surrounding George Floyd. Under the chief's leadership and with the commission, all of us have put in a lot of time, a lot of effort. Captain Race's administration level and his expertise, all of this combined really makes the department shine. I'm glad to be a part of it. And I think that with the expertise we have and the quality officers we have, we're going to do all right.
Thank you very much. I know, Al, you're not, you haven't risen to the high status of a commissioner, but just given your selectman liaison responsibility, is there anything you'd like to add to the discussion this evening?
Well, Ed, I appreciate your recognizing me. I think on behalf of the community and the Board of Selectmen, I wanted to express my appreciation for for not only the Madison Police Department, but for the leadership, the captain, the chief, and our 4 police commissioners for being so thoughtful, even-handed, for being conscientious and trying to make sure that our police department is reflective of our community's values. And I think we especially appreciate not only the officers and the leadership, but the civilian oversight of the department. I think it's a moment like this where I'm reminded of the importance of having this quality of leadership. So on behalf of all of us, thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Appreciate your remarks. Chief, Captain Race, thank you very much for your ongoing service and commitment to what is as everyone has acknowledged, very challenging time here. We do not have any need to go into executive session tonight. Chief? Yes.
Yeah, well, I just want to remind you folks that we're going through the exam process right now for the rank of sergeant, lieutenant, and captain, and that the oral boards with the subcontractor is administering the exam, which is the South Central Police Region. The captain oral is on June 16th. The sergeant lieutenant's written is on the 19th, and the oral for the lieutenants and sergeants is on the 23rd with the panel. You folks are post that, and you have to come up with maybe 1 or 2 dates that you could interview the prospective candidates. I have to have a post of ranking for the union by July 1st for the sergeant lieutenant ranks.
Are we
So-
thinking these are in-person interviews or
Well,
virtual?
it's probably going to be the same format we're using, which I know is difficult, but
We're not so good at this, but
well, perhaps, probably by the time the this is changing every week. So perhaps maybe we could use a community room. It is a much larger room. Perhaps that we can't accomplish it there, one-on-one interviews.
If we could do that, that would be terrific. On the other hand,
Okay.
so let me emphasize, likely be, I'm not intruding here, Chief, but likely be Christie, who will be asking you, trying to get access for you to reserve a couple of time so that we can interview, in particular, the sergeant level candidates, because that's the commitment we've made to try to identify the candidate to be promoted, prior to July the 1st. So over the next 2 weeks or so, please, you'll be asked to provide some dates and times when you are available. It's probably going to be a couple of hours, given the fact that we've got 4 candidates. So I know it's demanding, and a number of the commissioners have occupational commitments, but please be as flexible as you can. We will try to ask you for a number of dates so that we can try to coordinate this and make them as convenient as possible. But it's got to happen in the next couple of weeks so that we can hit the commitment we made to meet our collective bargaining agreement that we had, side agreement that we signed. So that is something, Chief, thank you for reminding me. It was only written at the top of my agenda here. I forgot to mention it. So with that.
If it is possible to have them in person and we can mask up and be far enough away in the community room, for me, it makes a big difference to be in person interviewing people.
Okay, I
if that's at all
don't see it as a
possible.
problem. I don't see it as a problem because you're gonna end up, it's gonna be 6 of us
Yeah.
and one of them. So I think that that room that holds 50, we're more than capable of distancing.
I
Proper
would
distancing.
really, Chief, I agree with Marietta as well. That would be, it just is helpful, it's smoother. And we don't have to keep asking each other, or people keep asking me to unmute. So if we could do that, given the access to that room, that would be terrific and helpful. I know it's a little bit of travel, but if we can do that, it would be great. That said, I know we are over a bit tonight. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Wait a second. Thank you very much. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your extended time this evening. Meeting is adjourned.
Night all. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
All right, all.
Aye. Thank you.
Joe, stop down here before you leave.